You are listening Audio Paper Series with Yasir, and today's guest is Dr. Gemma Langridge from Quadram Institute, Norwich, UK, to discuss one of her publications, Emergence of Resistance to Fluoroquinolones and third-generation Cephalosporins in Salmonella Typhi in Lahore, Pakistan. It's published in Microorganism. Welcome, Gemma. Why it is important if Salmonella Typhi become resistant to fluoroquinolones and third-generation cephalosporins?
Hi, Yasir. Thank you for having me here today. So the reason why emergence of resistance to fluoroquinolones and third-generation cephalosporins is so important in Typhi is because multi-drug resistance is already a problem within this organism, which is affecting treatment. And the more resistance that occurs within Salmonella Typhi reduces the treatment options that we have to treat this disease.
Okay. If Salmonella Typhi become resistant to these options, it would be difficult to treat typhoid fever. So how did you investigate Salmonella Typhi is becoming resistant to these options?
So what we did with this study was over a 3-month period with a hospital in Lahore. We looked at the Salmonella Typhi isolates that they got during that time, and they did some sensitivity testing to understand which antibiotics they were resistant to. And we also then did some whole genome sequencing to understand what was in the genomes that could be causing that resistance.
Okay. What were the main findings when you did the whole genome sequencing of these isolates from Pakistan?
So our main findings from sequencing were that we could identify a particular resistance determinant called CTXM15, which was responsible for ceftriaxone resistance, which is a really big deal in the Salmonella Typhi world, because this means that the bug is essentially extensively drug resistant. So we were able to identify that in each of these isolates that we looked at. And we were also able to see that actually it's the same background we see in these isolates as had been seen in a previous outbreak of this type of strain in the southern part of the country. And now we're seeing it in the northern part of the country.
Interesting science, but great concern for public health. My question is there any similarity in the isolates found in the southern part and the northern part of the country?
Yes, exactly that. So the outbreak strain, as we call it, from the southern part of the country was essentially what we are now seeing in the northern part. So both the chromosome and the plasmid on which the antibiotic resistance was found were the same.
After knowing XDR Salmonella Typhi is present in central or relatively northern part of Pakistan, what precautions should we be taking?
It's a really good question. So one of the things we understand from this is that while these resistances have occurred, the bug is still susceptible to a couple of antibiotic options. So that in itself is great, but unfortunately, resistance to one of these options has been detected. And so it feels like that is simply something that is coming. So surveillance is really important to understand what is coming and where those resistances might be emerging. But also this information that we get from studies like this really does provide evidence for the vaccine. So there are vaccines available for typhoid, and ideally populations in regions where typhoid is endemic, we need the evidence basis there to help the public health authorities get what they need to get those vaccine programs in place.
You mean use of available treatment options with caution, vaccine wherever possible, and keep the situation under surveillance is the way forward?
I would say so, yes.
Thank you, Gemma, for sharing very interesting research paper.